Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to this panel discussion, Imprint from Inspiration to Action. Thank you for joining us, everyone who's here in the gallery and everyone on Zoom. We really appreciate your time. This morning we are in the presence of beautiful artworks made by Helidon Xhixha. Sorry, I meant to check that before I started. Very difficult surname. But they are made of steel, they're imposing, they are memorable and powerful, but they're also contradictory. We're going to talk about them a little bit later. But what better way to open a panel discussion about climate change and sustainability and the role of art and culture than to be surrounded by these beautiful artworks, one which is depicting an iceberg, another the planet Earth, and all the artworks in the gallery around the subject of sustainability. So in the context of that, we are holding this discussion to talk about what we can do as individuals and what we are doing in the UAE in terms of sustainability. And that's why we're joined by this wonderful panel of speakers today. I just want to talk, I'll introduce all the panelists and allow them to introduce themselves. And without further ado, sorry, I'm losing my focus because I remembered something I have to say. Everyone who's joining us on Zoom, we have this technical equipment so that I can see you. You can ask questions at any point during the talk. So you don't have to wait as if you were in the room to hold up your hand and I can notice you. Just put the question on the Q&A section of the Zoom and we'll get to it after we've introduced the panelists. So, everyone who's here today, thank you so much for joining us. I just would like to apologize for Habiba Al-Marashi, the chairperson of Emirates Environmental Group, who couldn't make it today. She had a last-minute personal issue. And then Qais Al-Sawaidi, the director of climate change, who was unfortunately called away to a meeting with the minister. So they were supposed to be with us today, and they do apologize. Everyone who was looking forward to seeing them, hopefully you'll catch them at the next panel discussion. So, I'll briefly introduce you all, and then I'll allow you to take the floor in a minute. So we have Dina Story, head of Sustainability at Expo 2020. Thank you for joining us. Maria Duloquin, Partnership and Sponsors Manager at ASRAC organization, which helps to protect the marine environment. CEO and founder of the gallery, Mara Firetti, who's also hosting this panel today. Anne-Marie Thodson, sorry, founder of the Umbrella Institute, which is a purpose-driven, passionate corporate responsibility leader. And then at the end, the two gentlemen, we have Roland Nash and Andrew Rollstone from the Libra Project. So before I allow everyone to take the floor, I just want to, we just want to discuss a little bit about the context and the place that we're in. Obviously, I've talked a little bit about the artwork and how much it is really a poignant reminder of climate change, and that's it falls into the ethos and kind of the goal of the gallery. So I would like to start by asking Mara just to talk a little bit about why you decided to hold this discussion and also the artworks that we're surrounded by, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm honored to host the first of a series of panel discussions that the gallery intends to host, and all with a focus on climate change and sustainability. I would like to thank all of you for taking your precious time to come here. I know you're a very busy schedule, to come here and share your knowledge onto this matter, which is a precious contribution to all of us. Firetti Contemporary aims to be a gallery that is socially involved. We opened the gallery last March with the ongoing exhibition IMPRINT by Helidon Xhixha. The exhibition features mainly two monumental artworks that evoke the importance of the melting of the ice caps and the raising of the water levels that we should all be concerned about. So they stand as a statement towards this. The Iceberg is a project that was initiated in 2015, and the artist presented this beautiful project at the Venice Biennale, the 56th Venice Biennale, It was the first artwork ever allowed to travel and float on the Canal Grande all the way, reaching the island of San Servolo. This was an amazing and outstanding impact on the viewers and the visitors of the Biennale, and it had a tremendous impact also on the media and the press all over the world. We decided to bring Iceberg here as a statement that should continue and should travel around the world. In fact, after the Venice Biennale, it was exhibited in many cities around Europe. And just last year, it was installed in Lugano, on the Lake of Lugano, in conjunction with a personal exhibition of the artist of monumental works in Switzerland. The beauty and the power of art is such that it's capable of moving the deepest part of ourselves. It is capable of inspiring and making change in terms of moving our thoughts towards reflection. And this is exactly what our gallery aims to be, a platform where these emotions are exchanged between the artists and the viewers. With the exhibition IMPRINT, we have reached that goal of inspiring people. We've had many visitors coming to see the exhibition, from art collectors to families with children to students who came here. And it has been a beautiful experience. Now, with this panel discussion, what we're aiming to do is to take the exhibition a step forward. So we've now spread the awareness about the melting ice caps and the awareness on climate change, and bringing here all of you today, experts in this field. We would like to know what's being done through your organizations, your precious work, and how it's been impacted in the region. And also, perhaps to share with us some actionable points on how, in our individual lives, we can actually work in making a change towards this.
Thank you, Mara. That was beautiful and a really, really perfect introduction to what we are going to talk about. I'm going to just give you all now a few minutes so that everybody knows who you are, who your organizations are, and what you do. And then after that, we will move into a more sort of Q&A format. So I'm just going to go left to right. So Dina, do you want to just tell us, everybody obviously knows what Expo is, or maybe they think they do, but would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you do in sustainability and perhaps a sustainable pavilion that's there? And just please tell us more.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in such a beautiful place and a very inspirational place at that. My name is Dina Story, and I head sustainability operations for Expo 2020. I've been in this role for, it feels like a really long time, but it's only been 3.5 to almost 4 years. My mandate and my team's mandate is to integrate sustainability into all aspects of the Expo. So sustainability is not just a sub-theme for Expo, it's actually in the DNA of Expo. And people may not realize, but when the UAE went out to bid for the Expo, they committed to making or creating one of the most sustainable Expos in history. And what that means is that every aspect of the Expo is touched by sustainability and is measured through sustainability impact, both at an environmental, social, and economic level. And so from our buildings to our infrastructure to the toys that you buy at the store when you're there, they're all seen under that sustainability lens. And the other added portion of this is to create transparency. And transparency creates that change in misconception, which sometimes happen when you say Dubai, because Dubai is very, very much synonymous with sustainability. And so my job and my mandate and the team's mandate is to show and transparently report on all our targets. And so that's where we are right now. We open our doors in October 1st actually, and hopefully you'll get to see what I will be talking about.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think you raised some interesting points that we'll definitely come back to later, especially about associating Dubai with sustainability or not.
Yeah.
Maria, please, could you tell us more about Azraq and what you do, and just introduce the organization, please.
Sure, thank you so much. So Azraq is a marine conservation organization registered in the UAE, so we focus solely on the UAE. We're a non-profit and we're volunteer-led. We don't receive any funding or anything, so we're very independent. So Azraq's mission is to raise awareness and to protect the marine ecosystem. So we're trying to reduce the loss of biodiversity, and we aim to protect the marine species. And we do this through education, motivation, and activation of our members, but also the general public, and also companies as well. So for example, for education, did you know that 35% of microplastics actually come from when you wash your clothes? The fibers are released into the waterways. This is very interesting. So we raise awareness through community, social media, but also through our campaigns. For motivation, we actually try and help organizations make small changes by motivating them. For example, with the Shop Sustainable Fashion campaign, we have a tier system. So the more sustainable you are, based on criteria such as the natural dyes or how recyclable your packaging is, there is a tier system, and that is motivating companies to become a bit more sustainable. And in terms of activation, we organize activities for our members, but also for organizations and the public to actually make a difference. In the past week alone, we have run an underwater cleanup with our divers, which has also been sponsored by a company. And for every underwater ocean cleanup we do, we tend to collect between 30 to 300 kilos of marine debris, which is removing that debris from the ocean. But in the past week, we've also done mangrove tree planting, and each mangrove helps capture carbon. And also we have given a talk at a school to raise awareness on marine debris issues. And we're happy here today, and there are lots of things going on. So I would really encourage you to check out Azraq. It's Azraq ME on Instagram if you'd like to find out more.
Thanks, Maria. So much going on. I can't believe that about washing the clothes. I'm definitely going to come back to that. Anne-Marie, please can you tell us about the Umbrella Project and this whole idea of corporate responsibility? It's interesting to get into it.
Definitely. So the Umbrella Institute is an advisory here in the UAE focusing on sustainability and mainly for businesses. We really see that businesses have a very large responsibility to change the world as it is now. We also see that there are a lot of ways that businesses can be more profitable if they think differently. So we work a lot with the Sustainable Development Goals, and we vocalize what Maria, for instance, said, how you can take that and make it into an opportunity to really set yourself apart from other companies. So it's very much about the intersect between innovation and sustainability. What I will also say is there was a question that you will probably ask later, but I will just take it in terms. Sustainability is not a trend. We have to put it into a perspective. It's not a trend that will go on, let's say, 10, 20 years, and then people will forget it. What has happened is that the way we live and work now, that's the trend. We have been here for a millisecond on this planet compared to the 4.5 billion years it's old. And in the last, let's say, 100 years, we have radically, as people and humans and just businesses, changed how the world used to have an equilibrium and a balance. And this is what needs to change. It's not about which toothbrush you use at the end of the day or which soap you use that looks nice and is good and sustainable. It's about the fact that we have to stop overproducing, over-manufacturing, and most of all, over-consume. So that's the change that we're trying to advocate for a lot of NGOs in different places, for government entities, and then trying to make companies understand that this is their problem. And this is also their good problem because they can make a business out of it, and especially if they're first movers. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, so many things I want to ask. I'm going to ask you both to introduce the Libra project. I think you both do quite very different things, so I'll leave it to you to sort that out between yourselves.
Okay. Hi there, my name is Andrew Rollstone. I'm the CEO of Libra Project, and thank you very much it's an absolute pleasure being here today. Libra Project is a global initiative born out of Abu Dhabi. We're born out of Abu Dhabi Global Markets, and our mission is twofold. One, to positively impact the lives of 100 million people, primarily focusing on developing Asia, bringing clean energy to those locations that need it the most, and also to make impact investing accessible to everybody who has an interest in impact investing. Essentially what we're looking to do, if you look at the world as it is, there's 1.2 billion people on this planet without access to electricity. And you need to ask questions, why is that? My answer is just neglect. Neglect from governments. There's a reason why capital's not going into those locations. So what we want to do as a project is to bring capital primarily from the West through our digital platform and deploy it into locations that need it the most, which is democratically voted by the users and our participants of our platform. Our partners are wide, ranging from corporates to individual investors, and in time we'll bring this product to the retail community, which is designed to scale. Roland, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, taking the ideas that Andrew's just mentioned about bringing finance to people that don't have access to electricity, if you can imagine how that feels and what that means to you in terms of your life possibilities and outcomes. But going beyond that and into communities that do have access to electricity, there's an energy conversation. It's all about energy poverty, if you like, that these poorer nations, these developing countries, their access to electricity is generally unstable. It's not reliable, and it forces them to fall back on generally carbon energy sources. And if you think about how we live and how we use energy, it means that we have to burn organic fuel in our homes, and that has a direct impact on our health. So by making renewable energy sources available to developing nations through our initiatives at the Libra Project, we also impact the lives directly of people's health and the way that they can live and learn and the access to communication that otherwise they wouldn't have. So that's my contribution. My name is Roland Nash.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I mean, some massively wide-ranging issues there. I want to start. We have a few questions that have come in from a school, but there's one thing I was trying to find a question which was going to impact you all, or not impact, but be relevant to all of you. Thank you. Sorry. But there was one thing that I noticed from Dina and from Maria and from Anne-Marie, that the idea of sustainability is like, it's still in this place where nobody really knows how to judge it, rate it. You mentioned that you're trying to make sure everything that goes through the pavilion is sustainable, and you mentioned that you're trying to get people to understand what is it that makes something sustainable. And I think this is something a question I would like to ask you. How do you feel like if we had some kind of, like in food, you have the calories and the food, the fat and all of this stuff. Do you think if we had like a global nationwide rating system, it would help? And is that even possible? I mean,
so I don't think, and I'll answer from my end, I don't think sustainability is one size fits all. And the word sustainability has been so overused that people actually tend to shy away from it. And so what we're saying, and I think this is, I'm speaking on behalf of the entire panel, but of course you guys can speak for yourselves as well. What we're saying is how there are different standards for sustainability, but it's again not one size fits all. When I measure sustainability, let's say at the Expo site, when we go through our measurements, we have the built environment, which is different from the operations, from the programming, from the emissions. So there's not one size fits all. Also, I truly believe that if everybody, so I'm doing something and Azraq is doing something and Libra Project is doing something, there's this collaboration that's happening without actually collaborating, because we're all going towards this one goal. But I personally don't think that there's a one-size-fits-all, and that what works, let's say, in the UK may not work here, and what works here may not work in Africa, and so on and so forth. It's a matter of prioritizing the objectives of the place you are in and moving towards the targets of the place you are in. And honestly, I think one of the most important points is transparency.
Yeah, that's, I guess, what I meant, transparency.
Yeah.
Like if you, again, what Anne-Marie was saying, you work with corporates, so if you can, corporates work with figures and statistics, right? So if you can make something transparent or you can rate it, or how, one of the questions that came through was, how do you rate how sustainable an action is? I think there's this idea of, if you can reach the gold standard of whatever it is, and of course it's there are so many things that go into it, but
just like you say, right, sustainability is being built as an industry or as a sector, but it's being built on top of something that's existing, and we have to change them. So it's really about this. If you see there's an ecosystem, there's the government who are the one who will be regulating what happens. There's nation governments, there's state governments, so there's different levels. We have the UN, which is a bigger umbrella for a lot of different things. Then we have the companies who are in many ways right now not regulated in any way. They have, of course, national regulations or specific regulations in a local region, or they have something where they want to really show themselves in a best practice sort of way, but a lot of it is self-regulation as it is now. And self-regulation works when there's money in it. So we still want companies to be very profitable. They should be as profitable as they can be while still thinking about the environment and the people they use as resources. And the last thing is really the consumer, and we're all consumers here, right? Every single day, any one of us is a consumer, and we make multiple choices throughout the day. Even on Amazon, which I think has been a much bigger thing here during COVID, we buy a lot of things. And because we are so very rich, and I'm not just talking about people here in the room, but about a large percentage of the world, we have so much money, and they burn in our hands, right? We want to buy new things, and I've seen my friend, she has the newest bag, or my husband is really looking for a new car. It's not that we need one, but it would be so nice, right? And consumerism is just tearing the planet apart because we're overusing all the resources that were once in this round, beautiful Earth, and we're taking it out and using a lot of energy while doing it, and also upsetting the balance.
To add to that, I would definitely agree that transparency and accountability is very important, but we also have to think about how are we going to rebuild the environment, and exactly what is the impact of those actions, as has been asked. So, for example, planting a mangrove in its lifetime can actually capture just under 300 kilos in its lifetime of 25 years. And now that companies are starting to understand the statistics, and it's easy to measure this, they are finding it more attractive to actually implement these programs of planting mangroves or reforesting the corals, which are greatly needed. So I think it's a really nice mix when you bring data into the mix.
Could I just add to that? So with Libra Project, we're utilising technology, blockchain technology specifically, and the beauty of blockchain is transparency. It's an open ledger, so the data is completely visible and accessible to anyone who has access to it. going to the investor themselves, they can see exactly where their capital is actually being deployed. And they can see what the returns are, not just on the financial returns, but also the impact data as well. How much impact is their capital actually having on a particular location, community, and so on. This data can actually be used as evidence. For example, let's say an investor that invested into Libra Project had their own carbon footprint challenge that they needed to address. By way of investing into Libra Project, the data that they collect through that activity is theirs, and they can actually use that as an activity for showing evidence that they're making an attempt to offset their own carbon footprint challenge. Okay. So data is key. You mentioned the word balance. The definition of Libra is balance, essentially. So we want to create an equilibrium globally, so there's not too much capital in one particular part of the world, and it's not able to move into another. So essentially Libra Project, through the technology or the underlying technology that we use, allows for that movement of capital and that movement of resource, and then collect that data to come through. That's our model of sustainability, but utilising technology to allow us to do that.
I think, as I said, I think the one thing that really came through when you were talking was this issue of like being able to visualize it or see it. We all know it's a problem. We all know that we're making an impact on the planet somehow, but we don't know, or generally, you guys obviously do, but generally we don't know how to do anything about it.
So can I mention something? And this may be a statistic that, you know, makes people think. And if you go through the Sustainability Pavilion at Expo, you'll actually see it. So by 2070, which is really not that far away, we would need 2.5 Earths to make up the resources that we need for this one Earth. And we don't have 2.5 Earths. So we have to figure out, as Anne-Marie was saying, is how to consume less, but also how to consume more efficiently, and how to, this is the only planet we have. So whatever we do, we have to think, even the small things like the toothbrush you're talking about, do I need another toothbrush? Or do I, you know, these little things that we decide on a daily basis really do make a difference. And I've seen, unfortunately, you know, oh, well, it's not my problem, and we kick it down the line. But think about 2070, and my grandchildren will need 2.5 Earths, and they won't have the resources to be able to live, let alone thrive. So just that statistic I wanted to share with you.
And there's also some funny things, right? Like I come from Denmark, and many people say, wow, Denmark, you come from this very sustainable place. But if you take the planet calculation again, a Danish person uses 4.3 times as much as they should if there was Earth, right? If there was resources. While if you look at something like Indonesia or many developing countries, they're around 1 Earth, because they use what they have and what they should do. But we are the ones who have the money to buy. Again, we have an iPhone. I want a new Pixel. I want a new Samsung. Okay, and you also want a new car, and you also want. We're the ones who are using all these resources that we're also taking out of many of those places.
I want to discuss the issue of geography, because it's coming up a little bit across the board. Dina mentioned, you know, people assume that Dubai or the UAE is really not the place for sustainability. You know, you guys, the Libra project came out of Abu Dhabi, which again, I mean, honestly, people think of Abu Dhabi. Why would something this sustainable come out of Abu Dhabi? You know, we live in a place where the carbon footprint is the highest in the world per capita. And you mentioned just now, like, 1 Earth. I like the statistic. Indonesians are working at 1 Earth, where we're at 2.5 Earths. That's a bit scary, that statistic. But I guess what I want to ask you about is the UAE. I mean, we're all here. Like, do you find it, I'm going to ask Roland, actually, because you haven't spoken yet. Do you find it surprising that people still have this idea, like, why would the Libra project come out of Abu Dhabi? Is that a really bad sort of preconception to have?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you think about the groundswell of change that's happening here in an engineering sense, to try to rebalance the rush to develop that happened during the 80s, 90s, building the city. There was no concern for energy consumption. And that's created a reality where we're among the largest per capita energy consumers in the world. So the work that we do at Libra Project, yes, we focus most of our effort on developing nations and bringing energy resources to those nations, but we also, in our own consulting work, we work with developers here to help them be more sustainable in their energy consumption. And if you think about being the largest or among the largest energy consumer in the world, this is the place to do it. You can have the most impact in this work. And also in terms of energy conservation and energy sustainability projects, this is where you really test your mettle and make these technologies work in very challenging environment. We're in one of the hottest countries in the world with a population that wants to live comfortably and well. That requires technology, and that's really how we've sort of cut out of this sort of group of technologists, which is what Libra Project grew out of. There's certainly some fantastic ledger technology for monitoring the effectiveness of our projects, but underneath that is this solid engineering of how to create sustainable low energy consumption to still give us comfortable living environment. That's our DNA, that's where we come from. Our engineers, the people that I spend my time with, do this.
So you're saying it is possible for...
Absolutely.
It's just changing the use of the technology that we use.
Yes. I'll give you an example. Let's say this building, it's using, and I'm not criticizing the building, it's using really conventional cooling technologies. Just by changing the paradigm, changing the way we cool this shell, we could halve the amount of electricity required to do exactly the same job. Halve. And that could happen right across the country. It's not that difficult. It really isn't. And it's by not being difficult, it's not expensive either.
Can I throw the question back to you, Dina? Because I know you mentioned it right at the beginning before we even talked about this idea. I want to get it out into the discussion about this idea of saying what we're talking about, the UAE being this kind of terribly unsustainable place. Do you find that in your day-to-day that you have to come up against this?
So I think all of us here have this way. We have to change that misconception. I personally think that the work that's being done here is much better than any other place. And that's not just because I'm here and I'm biased, but the way that the leadership is thinking about the change is very aggressive and very strong and very positive. Me and my team wouldn't be able to work and do the work that we're doing if I didn't have the green light and I didn't have the blessing of the leadership. I'm not going out by myself. I'm taking the lead from them and moving forward and implementing. And you talk about building efficiency. All our permanent structures are LEED Gold and above. That's over 120 buildings. Our energy efficiency for those buildings that will stay for legacy is a minimum of 30% energy efficiency and about 50% in water savings. So that's an entire city, twice the size of Monaco, in the desert, that's efficient. But that's not the only place. You talk about mangrove conservation. I mean, again, there's a big push towards mangrove conservation and towards carbon sequestration. The UAE is bidding for COP 28. And I think that's a very important, bold move by the government. Dubai Tourism has come out with a list of requirements, 19 of them, to say, okay, hotels and tourism places, you need to follow those rules. Even though, if you think about it, all over the world right now, the tourism industry is in a way hurting. But they're coming out and saying, you know what? No, you still need to follow those things. And I think that that's the difference, is that there's this push from the government, there's this push from the leadership, and what they're saying is, we are sustainable, our ancestors were sustainable, and we will continue to do so. And you know, I bring it back to where we are and the art that's been shown here. And there is a level of consciousness, not just from the expats, but from the local population, that says, you know what, I want to take care of this place and I want to take care of the planet. And I really believe that, you know, I was here 7 years ago, and the transformation is absolutely immense. And I believe that the next 5 years, it's going to be even more so.
Thank you. I mean, I want to talk about the art. Definitely we want to get back to the art. I'm having some questions on here too. So I just want to ask Maria quickly, because you, to finish this issue of like working here in the UAE and having an impact here, do you feel the same? Do you agree with what Dina said about the support from the nation, from the people, from the government, I mean, to do what you do?
Yeah, for sure. I think we have definitely seen a hugely growing interest and lots of movement from government and organization. What I think is really important is raising education, not just of expats, obviously, of local, every resident in the UAE, educating them on actually the diversity of the ecology here in the UAE. For example, the coral reefs. The Abu Dhabi has the richest coral reef system in the Arabian Gulf, and not that many people know that. 90% of it has been badly damaged or eradicated from the bleaching incidents from 96 and 98, which was a global incident. It's not just here. But actually the government are working very hard now to create the largest artificial reef nursery in the world. So they're actually rebuilding these artificial reefs. And ASRAC can help organizations do this privately as well, but just to show that they are making huge moves, and with the mangrove project as well. So we are seeing a big effort on their side.
Okay. I want to get back to the art for a minute, because we are in this art gallery, and as Mara mentioned in your introduction, I truly believe also in the power of art to change perspective. And if you change perspective, you know, we're all talking about change. You need to change the idea sustainability is like a trend, or that, you know, this 2.5 Earth thing. It's all about, once we all believe that we don't need to buy an extra toothbrush and we don't do it, then it's all about a mindset thing. So Mara, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit, because you were there when the Iceberg first floated down the canal in Venice. Yes. And I know, I talked to you about it before, I know it had a really personal experience for you, like moved you. Do you, and clearly this is what you do now, your gallery, you've built a gallery in Dubai, not just to, you know, as a business, obviously it's a business, but to make an impact, to bring people from all over Dubai to, you know, I want to discuss the power of art. I mean, how, there's a question, I'm going to read it because this is my question, but it's also a question that's coming from the school, which is, how can art raise awareness about environmental issues? Or how can art really make a change?
Well, yes, I was there in 2015. I was part of the project of the Iceberg, and it was amazing to see the reaction and the feeling being exchanged and revolving around this impactful sculpture traveling along the Canal Grande. I think the power of art, the true beauty of art, is that when we are in front of an artwork, we feel the freedom of interpretation. So there is this pure and clean message that is not contaminated, that comes from the artist and is moved forward to the viewer. So in front of art, there are no limitations, and that's why we take it to our deepest inner core, and we take it with us for a very long time. it has a very strong impact on the way we reflect over issues. And that's why, as a gallery, we tend to, our mission is to be a podium where these sensations and these messages are exchanged, and they have to be meaningful between the artist and the viewer.
Mm-hmm. I sometimes think personally that it's a bit, the freedom of art is like, if you're being told something, if you're being told the polar ice caps are melting and the polar bears are drowning and it's really awful, you tend to you can't almost process it. You just think, oh my God, I can't do anything about that, so I'm just going to ignore it. So I really want to get your opinions in general about the use of art and culture to change perceptions. I mean, Maria, you said you go to schools, you probably use a lot of visuals to give these people this news about the planet, but without it being so scary or negative that we just shut it off.
Yes.
Maybe you could start with what
Sure.
you think.
I definitely think that art has a huge power to really initiate discussions and make you think from your own personal perspective as well. Speaking of schools, we did actually run a campaign called Useless Utensils. So this was a very specific campaign where we partnered with Freedom Pizza and Carluccio's and Lush and asked people to look at home. Did they have any of those useless plastic utensils that you find at the bottom of your drawer from takeaways or whatever? And we gathered them all together, and the idea was to make artwork. So lots of kids made different artwork, but also adults and our partner artists as well. And so we collected 30,000 plastic utensils that otherwise would have just been forgotten or just thrown or maybe taken away and left in a park or a beach. And the children and some adults actually created artwork out of it, and it actually made them think. And the children had these discussions with their families about, no, let's refuse the useless utensils, or it made companies think, actually, we're not going to mindlessly give these plastic utensils away. Actually, we're going to invest in bamboo utensils, which is biodegradable. And then the artist who actually created a jellyfish-like lamp using it looked beautiful because it had a light under the utensils. We actually use this as an ongoing exhibition, and people stop and stare and actually question, what is the point of this? And it just brings something quite insignificant and it brings it to the surface. Mm-hmm. So we find that a very tangible way of starting that discussion.
What about you, Anne-Marie?
So I think this is a very good example, right? This is changing business behavior. For instance, when you go to Taliban now, there's a tick. You can say, I don't want plastic utensils. Yeah. And if you use that one, then it scales up. And that's what we really want companies to do. We want them to think about how they not just save energy and water in their own factory, but also think about their supply chain. Because when you start to look at carbon footprint, there's scope 1 and 2, and then there's scope 3. And very often, when you do look at your carbon footprint, it's in scope 3. So that's the 95% of what happens, or maybe up to 99%. And the more they can really reel in all these unnecessary things, then we start to save something that wasn't there. And that's what we work with companies with. So we work, for instance, with a large retail organization here in the UAE that everybody knows. And they're really looking at how we do that sort of things in their shops. How do we ensure that people, for instance, buy the food that's good for them and the food that has the least carbon footprint, which is being produced here in the UAE, which is also behaving nice to the people who are developing it. And like that's the sort of thing that scales.
Sorry to stop you on that. That's an interesting point. So you are working with, I presume you mean like a supermarket, but to have like a rating on the product?
So that's one of the steps. It's quite far in ahead, but we are working to see, for instance, how we disclose to the consumer what the difference is between this packet of tomatoes and this packet of tomatoes.
Yeah.
Can you recycle all the stuff in here? Where was it produced? How many liters of water was used in it? And the other one, like, you have to be able to compare tomatoes and tomatoes, or
This is what I meant
apples and
before
apples.
by transparency and rating. I think this is what we need to get to. I don't know
It
how.
needs to get to that, but the issue is that it's systemic change that makes sustainability, right? So systemic change is as big as it can be. It should be nationwide, that you can go into any shop and say tomatoes here, tomatoes here, tomatoes here. Ah, okay, these ones. But sustainability is not a thing that you can just say, okay, water we used least on these. Okay, but maybe we used a lot more energy on, let's say if they come from Northern Europe, Holland, then they're produced with some kind of heating.
Yeah.
They used less water, but they used more heating. Okay, so what is higher up on our hierarchy of important things in sustainability? Or, how did we treat the people? This is again part of a disclosure sort of cycle that's not really started yet. So how do we ensure that the people who produced the tomatoes lived a good life, didn't work with chemicals and other things, and that they actually understood what it was they were producing? It's a big thing, sustainability. It's not just about water and energy. A lot of companies come to us and say, will you help us save water and paper? Sure. But we want to help you make other people save more than you do now.
Andrew, you're nodding furiously.
I'm in agreement with everything. Just going back to your point about art.
Yeah, that's what
I think it has got an important part to play. I mean, I haven't been in many art galleries before, so this is a bit of a nice experience for me. And I feel like it's a sanctuary. And I'm a very visual person, so when I'm promoting and selling, you visualize, you try and convey an image to that person through words, but they visualize. But being here, just looking at these artworks, and in a normal gallery environment, it's silent, so you can actually reflect. So you can visualize and you can actually reflect, and you can think about the next steps. For us, we're a solutions provider, so I'm looking at various artworks and thinking, okay, these represent damage to the planet, but I'm thinking, what's the solution? So I think art plays a great role in bringing the problems to a surface where you, as an individual, can make your own assumptions and thoughts. So I think it's got a great place to play.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to say anything about art and culture, Roland? Because I know that you're quite passionate about it.
Yeah, this is a personal experience of what happened when I first came into the gallery. I was working close by, and I had a minute to kill. I walked in the door, and what Mara says is so true. I saw the iceberg, and it hit me like that. I thought, this is a conversation that needs to be had. And I really appreciate what Mara's done with the Firetti Gallery in trying to catalyze, exactly as she says, a discourse through bringing openness through art. So art frees you from sort of preconceptions and other people's dialogue. It helps us just experience our emotions. And these are emotional pieces, at least they were to me, and I hadn't met Mara at that stage. We got chatting about what she was trying to achieve in the gallery and what this exhibition was about, and it resonates with me a lot, because this is what I do in my life, this is what I do in my work, and I really am very honored to be part of this discussion and bringing what I can to the dialogue, so thank you.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the other way that art really works, and this is to get back to the discussion, is that you don't know how it affects you later on. You're not saying something directly, you're saying something subconsciously, so that it stays with you much longer, especially with kids. And that's the kind of, in order that we keep talking about this word change, systemic change, you don't need to feel the change. If you feel the change, it's most likely it doesn't last, like when you go on a diet. But if you change, like it's internal, it's just a different choice that you make without thinking about making that choice. That's, I think, what, personally, I'm very passionate about art, as you can tell. I believe that the marriage of art and sustainability is such an important marriage because, as you said, Anne-Marie, it's not a trend, it's not a choice. And this 2.5 Earth thing is still in my mind. And I want to ask you a question that's on here from one of our Zoom audience members. This is an interesting one. It's bringing in technology as well. So going back to the tech, you said that by 2070 we will need 2.5 Earths to sustain our resources. But can we use other planets like Mars or other planets to survive? Because by that time the technology will be improved.
See,
What do you think about that?
It's a great, beautiful question. But we only have one Earth. We cannot take the hypothetical one or two, let's say Mars or...
We won't. Do you think by 2070 we'll be on Mars? I mean, I don't know.
What does it matter if we'll be there?
It doesn't.
If we've destroyed this really, really great place where we are.
Yeah.
So
And even taking us to Mars, it's like a great propulsion of a lot of different things.
lots of resources being used to get us to Mars in the first place.
And then if we don't learn now, we will do the same thing on Mars.
Exactly.
So we might as well save what we have, which is beautiful.
Exactly. I mean, it's survived 4.5 billion years.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Like, do you think, okay, Dina.
So I mean, I always remember a saying by one of my professors when I was studying this topic. And he said, I hope we get to the point where you as a sustainability professional are no longer needed. And your job is not infinite, it's finite. And he said, because it'll become part of the norm. It will become part of the norm of the company, the organization, where you're working. It'll just become part of it. So you're working towards a job that hopefully will not exist in the future. And that's the goal here. It's trying to get to a point where it's part of your day-to-day life. And it's almost like, you know, getting milk from the milkman. I mean, that used to happen. I remember my mother saving all of the plastic containers to reuse them on something else. And here now we just go and buy some more and more. So what I'm saying is, I agree with you that, of course, if we can't be efficient on this Earth, how are we going to be efficient on Mars?
On another planet, yeah. Sure. Andrew, what do you think about that? Because
Well, there is a mission to Mars, isn't there, which is being driven by numerous countries and also Elon Musk. So I think there is an intent there. I mean, why would they be exploring? There must be something incentivizing them.
But can I add to that? It's okay to explore. It's okay to reach for the stars and go out and see the universe. I think that's not. The mission is not to take over. The mission is to make sure that we as species are growing and understanding the universe around us.
Yeah.
And I think the mission to Mars and all of these other things are great for that. Does that necessarily mean that we will go live there? Maybe, if an asteroid hits this place, but we still have to learn from our mistakes and be more efficient. So, I mean, I'm just adding that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I don't think no. I mean, there is a race to go to Mars, but I don't think it's to replace Earth with Mars.
Exactly.
I think it's just more exploratory, personally.
We're not quite in Wall-E territory yet.
No.
There's no water there.
There's no water there. Going back to water, actually, Maria, there was one question. I want to get to it because they did ask. You talked in the beginning about cleaning up the oceans. Do you use any kind of machines to clean up the oceans?
So ASRAC itself doesn't actually use machines apart from the boats and the diving aids that we use. Actually, there's a lot of specialist equipment, such as special mesh bags to gather and diving scissors and diving knives to actually cut free a lot of the ghost nets, which is a huge problem. And as a team, they have to remove a lot of heavy, for example, mattresses or shopping trolleys as a team, but we don't have access to machinery. There are many amazing innovations out there who are trying to tackle huge areas of the Pacific, including the garbage patch, for example, but we don't personally use machinery.
That was a question from the audience. I'll go through some of the questions that came
We also have to remember not to treat just the system, right? The symptom. And that's what we see with all these talks about straws and water. And of course, there is a huge symptom with all the trash in the world, in the waters and in the systems, but they come from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So if we can close up where they come from, let's say big rivers where it just flows out with plastic, that's really where we should put our effort. instead of picking up the individual pieces once it's been scattered around a very, very large ocean.
What did you say? Sorry, we should put our efforts in the source of the problem.
Yeah.
Stop the flow.
Which is what you're doing with this useless utensils thing, I think.
That's a lot about education and changing supply chains, and actually by doing beach cleanups as a team and sponsoring our teams to actually go and do them, it is raising awareness, and it is creating discussions and dialogue within some companies about actually, I'm going to push back on that supplier, I'm going to ask him some hard questions, because yes, it's going to affect my scoping data, but actually I don't want excess plastic. So yeah, it's a bit of a pair.
I think the question is about responsibility. I mean, Anne-Marie even talking about corporate responsibility. You guys, obviously, you're trying to, from what I understand, allow people to offset their own impacts by benefiting other people, therefore being more responsible for their actions. I think this whole mindset is like basically this whole discussion, why we're here. We want to encourage people not to just put those blinkers on and actually be positive about it. I think one of the things that Anne-Marie said, which I think we should take away with us, is like it's a good problem to have, right? It's something that we have to solve it in a good way, and that's also what you guys are doing, right? So there's a question from the school which is slightly negative, but I want to put it to you in that the question is, how do you feel about asking the next generation to solve our issues? And I think what the question I would ask is, what are we doing now to stop the next generation having to solve our issues? We're basically empowering them with tools so that we don't have to have this problem anymore, hopefully. Is that what you guys are really about at the Libra Project?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, what drives us, and we didn't speak about this as we were doing the introductions, is the UN SDGs, the Sustainability Development Goals. That is really what pushes us forward. That's what we're about. And I think to answer the question from the school and from the student that's saying, why dump? I think if I can just rephrase it, why are you old guys dumping these problems on us? I think that is how I'm internalizing that question. And, honestly, at my tender age, I feel a little bit in the same way. We are doing our best to address what we've inherited in reality. And it's really good that we're having this conversation in a country that has been dependent on carbon fuel sources for income. And seeing that transformation and helping that move of dependency from oil and gas to other sources. And you see it in the Sheikh Maktoum bin Rashid solar park, 24 gigawatts of solar investment. It is huge. It's one of the biggest in the world. This is happening now. We are the change. And exactly as we'd said earlier on, this is not a conversation that has an expiry date. This is an ongoing dialogue that goes on intergenerationally. So I feel I'm the torchbearer among leaders, and we will eventually pass the baton to the student that asked the question, and we hope that they would take up the challenge and do the same. So I feel really positive about the future, and I see that there's more and more interest in the topic of sustainability. In my family, there's educators, and right now there's a program which is celebrating their grade 5 learning. 80% of the topics that they're presenting to their peers are around the discussion of sustainability in terms of climate change, and sustainability in terms of waste, sustainability in terms of using more than we need. All of the topics here, grade 5, are doing that in their daily work, and this is the people that are on the students that are joining the call. That's why they've come into the Zoom. They want to hear what we've got to say, so that they can learn and take this on for themselves.
Again, it comes down to responsibility.
Yeah, so I'm super excited, if you didn't catch it, that we've got a community out on Zoom that is younger than us and even more energetic than us, that wants to take this on. So that's, I think, a positive way to answer the question from a student who might be seeing negative.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think we should go on, please. Maura.
Absolutely. As a mother, I have a 27-year-old and a 7-year-old. And in between, I see that, you know, there is a great awareness on my little one, Electra, that goes to school, and she is so focused on, you know, Mom, yes, let's use these bags and use less plastic. And, you know, they're much more attached to the issue, which is a tremendous positive intake.
I think we should talk about the positives, because although, you know, we hear a lot of the negatives, I think, you know, we have to put hope in that the next generation, be responsible for that too, you know, as mothers, as parents, as role models. I think it's important. Does anybody here in the audience have any questions that they want to ask? I know that you're all listening away to us, but I want to give a bit of time for anyone to raise any questions, if there is one, before we go into some top tips. Don't be shy. Okay, maybe we'll come back to you in a minute. Let's check this. No, but there's no more here. Oh, hang on, there is one more. Oh. What's SDG, Sustainable Development Goals?
Yes.
Are built into the curriculum. Oh, it's more of a comment. They're
wonderful.
built into the curriculum now, so that's why the kids are coming up with this.
Can I just add to that? I think in terms of responsibility and the curriculum, I think it is happening, but often organizations are waiting for direction from the top, and there's nothing stopping leaders here actually making the change themselves and being the leader of sustainability for organizations. Oftentimes we see them waiting for policy, and it doesn't always have to be that way. They can be the first to install a real circular economy, and I would just be keen to see this happen within organizations.
That goes back to the role of activism, and actually I'm again bringing art into the equation, because I feel like you need different angles and pathways to be an activist. You know, sometimes you need something that's less direct. You know, you talk about Greta Thunberg and her teenage years. She was so impactful because she was a surprising leader. No one expected a teenage girl to have such an impact. And I think, you know, sometimes you need different ways, or people just realizing that, you know, you don't have to wait for policy change to come from the top. You can just actually start being your own eco warrior. I don't like that phrase, but I couldn't think of another one. And what about you, Dina, back at the Expo? Obviously, you're having a huge impact on many, many people in October when you open.
Yeah.
I think I don't know what the projected footfall is, but millions and millions, I think, over 6 months.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you the art question, but I guess, so how are you hoping to inspire the visitors to become more sustainable?
So I think there are so many ways to inspire the visitors. The actual site inspires the visitors. The architecture on the site. As you walk through the site, you will see, you know, for example, the sustainability pavilion, which is one of the sub-themes of Expo. It has this canopy of photovoltaic panels, and as you walk through the building, in itself, it's a piece of art. I think there's a lot of work that we're doing, and hopefully, I can't mention all of it, but I will tell you, please come and see it. But the most important thing is creating that transparency from what we do, is putting it all out there. We're coming at it from a place of humility. We are creating a sustainable expo, one of the most sustainable expos in the world, within the context of what is required in this country. And I think the whole idea of tomatoes to tomatoes, a tomato that's energy intense or a tomato that's water intense, which one would you pick if you are in a water scarce area? You'd pick the energy intense one because you're in a water scarce area, or vice versa. So it's the same kind of way that we're looking at inspiring the visitors of the Expo. It's making you ponder, it's making you think. So there's all these different journeys for younger people, for people who are professionals like us, and then there are people who are just coming in to have a good time. But all of these journeys tell a story, but all of these journeys are meant to make you ponder. And that's, in a way, that activism that you're talking about, creating that way of saying, hey, wait a minute, when I go home, I have to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And it doesn't always have to be, you know, sitting in a parking lot and holding a sign.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to end the discussion with some pointers from all of you on how to make an impact. So, Maria, were you going to say something? I felt that. No, sorry. Okay. Did anyone think of a question yet? No. Just checking. Okay, I did want to keep some time at the end for this, because this the panel is called Inspiration to Action. I think you all really are doing some really inspiring work, and obviously, honestly, we could have had an hour with each one of you, because I think the discussions are, I mean, the things that you're doing are really, really impactful. But what we did want to do with this discussion, and we discussed this with Mara before, it's really important for people not just to sort of hear these statistics. We need 2.5 Earths. We need, systemic change from the top. Actually, Maria touched on it just now. You don't have to wait for people to make the policy change. We can all do things. And I'm actually really interested to know what I can do. Sure, I don't have to buy, an extra toothbrush or use a straw. But from you're working on the ground in one of the hottest countries of the world, one of the most challenging climates for cooling, for energy, for water, for all of these things that we know about. But you also, because you're working in these environments, perhaps if we can nail sustainability in the UAE, it's not going to be as difficult to do it in a country that isn't a desert. I don't know if that's the case, but what we would like, and I think what the school kids would like, and what everyone listening on Zoom would know, what can we do? Like if you had one piece of advice to make an impact or a difference on an individual level, whether that be teaching your daughter, I mean, thankfully the schools are doing a really good job of that, or whether that be not investing in something, maybe an investment issue. I don't know. I'm going to start from Roland's side, actually, because I'm always starting on this side. What would you say, Roland? Like, what can we do, actually, activism?
Yeah, I really like the way that you explained activism and how it can be done, how we can be activists in the most powerful way. We can do it in a sort of mono-dimensional way and just bang a single theme and turn people off. Or we can put our actions into, our ideas and our thoughts into action like we're doing today, and start to live these things and be leaders. So I would say, picking up on the point that we talked about, what's happening inside the schools, SDG goals, as the feedback on the Zoom said, is in the curriculum. So my challenge is live those goals, be the change. The goals are good. If you go through any one of them, we can live them. That's what my challenge would be. Live the SDG goals.
One of the students has just come in. Sorry, I know I said I was going to ask you to do it, but so this is what I mean. She says, is there anything really big that students can do to help? I recycle, I use my bike when I can, and I'm trying to become a pescatarian. I think we all have these, these ideas of this is how we make a difference, right?
Yeah.
Go on.
So adding to what I'm saying, and this is where I'm talking about activism. Activism happens at a personal level, but it happens in a social level. It happens wider. In the context of what we're doing right here, we're sharing a dialogue, having a conversation with hundreds of people. Yes, it's right to recycle. It's right to take the bicycle when you could have taken the car. And encourage others to do the same thing. Show them that it's not impossible. 2 doors down is a cycling initiative from where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. more and more people using those bicycles would mean that there were more and more bicycles in our community to use. For 8 months a year, it's absolutely possible to cycle around. It's more like San Diego here than anything else. It's the most beautiful environment to get around in. You know, the winter time here, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's get on the bike. You know, we look for these huge solutions where it has to work all of the time. The world that I'm living in sustainability engineering is that if you can make a small change, you've made a powerful change. So what I'm saying with the bicycle, if you're using the bike for 6 months of a year, that's 6 months you're not burning fuel in the car. It's so, that is the point. Yeah, do it.
Burning calories.
And yeah, less calories. Sorry, more calories burnt. It's all good for the health. It's good for the environment. As an example, if we were just using mobility, but I could go on.
Yeah.
But the point is, be the change.
What about you, Andrew? I mean, you mentioned earlier invest in and how people can, you know, using this ledger and the blockchain for transparency and helping people in other nations. I wonder if you could give us an answer from a maybe an investment point of view. I don't know how we can help.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, where we are as a company at the moment, we're just starting off, and we're raising capital to execute and operate. So we're raising capital primarily to acquire renewable energy plants. But in 12 to 18 months' time, this is where we're bringing our product to the mass market. It's a financial product at that stage where anyone for as little as $100 can actually invest into Libra projects. So their capital is used to have positive impact, but at the same time generate a return on their investment as well. So we're using, we're not a non-for-profit, we're not a charity either. However, we have those attributes as well as looking to get investors' interest to do good with their capital. But answering the question from your student as well, we believe that we created a platform which en masse can be used for individuals, but collectively to vote on decisions that are made. So rather than being told what to do, we're saying, no, you decide and you vote on what decisions are actually being made. So this inclusive decision-making, democratic platform that we're bringing to the market, we hope that we'll be leading by example and going along with the change. But if you just look at change in general, I mean, it's historical what we're all collectively going through at the moment. There's a real shift of capital, moving away from traditional fossil fuel investments, the handing over from inheritance from the baby boomers to the younger generation. The younger generation have completely different interests to the older generation. And it's a generalization, but they want to see data. They want to look and feel and touch, albeit digitally, what they're investing into. So we are in that wind of change, and I think that the landscape that we're creating, and there are some other platforms aligned with what we're trying to create. I think it's going to be very exciting the next 5, 10, 15 years, because the platforms individually but collectively en masse will actually be driving this change and actually be dictating what happens, rather than relying on, let's say, decisions from certain leaders that restrict those changes from happening. So I completely concur with that student asked that earlier question, and I would say that you will be able to play an active role in change very soon, I would say.
That's what we need to hear. That's what we're here to hear, isn't it? Anne-Marie, can you give us one piece of your treasured advice? I feel like you have a lot of it.
So we talked about systemic change, and it always sounds like that's supposed to be governmental, but it can also be very personal. So you who's sitting out there, especially the school kids, and you don't want to be called a kid, so I apologize for that. You make your own governance document, okay? You tell your parents and your grandparents and the people, whenever you have a birthday or you have a celebration of some kind, don't give me exactly the next iPhone, or don't give me this. I don't want plastic this, I don't want furniture from this place, I don't want this type of fast fashion. You tell them that you want experiences, you want food with them, you want a night in the cinema with them, you want to give, for instance, a chicken to Africa, or like investing in solar power with your... You tell them to spend your money in a way so that you don't build to that garbage pile. That's, here in the UAE, we can actually see it very well. It motivates me very much to see that one. But many places you don't get to see your garbage and you put it in your bin, but try and see if you can add to the old saying of reduce, reuse, recycle, and add the one that says refuse. Don't buy something you don't need. Really ask yourself, do I need this? Or do I just want it? Does it look good? Do I need it? If you don't need it, save your money. Put them somewhere else. Make someone else feel good about them. That's the best thing I can say.
That's very good advice.
And you can ask for fun things as well. I have a field in Denmark in my house, and for Christmas, I took my husband, and I said, you cannot have anything this year, and his parents cried, and his in-laws cried, and I said, no, he can't have, but you can buy us a tree. So they bought 2 different trees that they thought fit our personalities. Now we have a tree.
Nice.
We can ask for that for birthdays as well, or we can ask for other things, right?
Nice.
Next time it might be I don't know, compost or something funny.
I love the idea of a tree. I might ask for a tree for my birthday next.
But you can think differently, right? We don't just need items that we stock up in our very big houses here. We have very big houses, and the bigger your house is, the more stuff you can put in there.
Very true. Thank you. Mara, before you answer, there's a question from the audience. What are the gallery's goals in terms of sustainability? How would you like to move forward in future exhibitions?
Yes, in September we have another exhibition which still focuses on the environment, and the artists that will take part are all going to use recycled materials.
Oh, great.
So, and that will be the occasion of our next panel discussion, because I feel that today what we brought here to the public and to myself as well, I've learned so much, and it's really constructive. It's a precious gift.
Yeah, really.
So yeah, in September,
Okay.
another exhibition.
In September. Sorry, back to Maria. Maria, do you have any tips? Because you're working maybe more so than anyone here with, on the ground with people. You're working with kids, you're working with organizations, and you're actually giving people tips, I think, all the time on how to actually make a difference. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
But what would your one piece of invaluable advice be?
My one piece of advice would be really to share and speak up about what you are learning, to share your journey, even if it's small steps, even if it's swapping out your shampoo bottle for a package-free shampoo, like a naked shampoo bar. Just sharing what you're doing, I think that's what makes the biggest difference. And yeah.
I was wondering I just thought of something then, because now, of course, sharing is part of our life, especially if you're, on Instagram or social media. It's always sharing everything, sharing what you ate for your breakfast, sharing, how fast you ran.
Yeah.
So maybe we could encourage people to use that platform.
Sure, yeah. If you have learned something today, please share what we've been talking about here at Firetti Contemporary. And I would advise you to maybe also do your research and maybe share something once a week that you have picked up on. It could be that the rising sea levels mean that the corals are getting less sunlight, which mean that they photosynthesize slower. It could be any little interesting facts like that really do make a difference and help educate other people.
That's actually really, I think people get a lot of... You can even become an influencer.
Absolutely.
In that way.
But don't, please.
Don't please what?
Because they all, that's a whole nother
Don't be an influencer.
I would encourage an eco-influencer for sure. Yes.
Okay, Dina, what advice would you give to our audience? Think kind of I mean, I know your bread and butter, your life is all about making sure everything is sustainable, but what can we do as, as the general public?
So I mean, I agree with everybody in what they said here. I think it's a combination of those, and then just to add an extra point is that truly education is power. Don't take things at face value. Question, literally question. If something does not seem right, I mean, we get our information in little sound bites at this point in time, and it's kind of fed to us that way. And most of the time, a lot of us don't question. And to me, I find it, from a personal perspective, very aggravating when I hear somebody saying, oh, there's no way you can have a sustainable expo in Dubai because they're never going to be sustainable. Well, go out and do your research, question, and find the answers that are correct and that make sense. Don't take things at face value, especially the younger generation who are coming up now with this knowledge at their fingertips. You have the power that we didn't have. I mean, I didn't have anyway. When I was younger, you had to go to the library and there's an index card and you have to read through stuff, and it was just a nightmare. But you have the power to have knowledge at your fingertips. So read facts and question, always question. And I think that's my most important
That's
thing.
great advice for life in general, to be honest, So I think that wraps it up. Does anyone have any burning issues that I didn't mention, or you really wanted to say, given this platform that we all have together, before I close it?
I'd just like to say thank you to Mara and to the gallery.
Thank you all for coming here.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone that watched us today has taken something very constructive with them.
I really
come and see the Iceberg.
Yes, come and see it. Come and see it.
Yes, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us in person, and thank you to everyone on Zoom.
Thank you.
Please do come to the gallery and see the exhibition, and thank you to all our panelists. Honestly, it's been really, like you said, informative, inspiring, and hopefully actionable. Is that the right word?
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.